Hi, hope you're doing well. Well, I hope you'll excuse me. I have been engaged in a story about Steve Harvey. I got trapped into this story because it was a story about Steve Harvey, and of course, he had written a book about um, dating and so forth. And I had bought the book a long time ago for a young lady, and I wanted to let her read the book. So when I saw that story about Steve Harvey, I was interested, and I have since told the woman to throw the book away. But if you haven't heard it, I'm going to go into a quick synopsis of this long, winding story. It started when um, when did it start? It's so long. Steve Harvey was married to two previous women, and he married Marjorie, who we've all heard about if you've heard him talk about his wife on the Family Feud. Well, it seems Marjorie had, in at an early age, married a man older than her who was heavy into drug dealing, big time drug dealing, and all of this is alleged. I don't know any of these people. But anyway, he was supposed to have been big time drug dealing, heroin and stuff. And he married Marjorie, and she was very active in the business. He was sent to jail for life, but he did get paroled. So after he got sent to prison, Marjorie married another big time drug dealer, and later she met Steve Harvey. Well, Steve Harvey met Marjorie at according to this story, a poker room. I guess was playing poker in somebody's house, and the poker room was frequented by the man who is now his cook. And what else does he do? I guess security. Is big something. I can't remember what his name is. And he introduced Marjorie to Steve. Now, in hindsight, I kind of think this is a setup because the man who, this big guy, he was also a pimp and a drug dealer, I believe. So, we got a pimp and a drug dealer, a girl who's into drug dealing, and then Steve Harvey walks in. He introduces Marjorie to Steve. Steve likes her. They get married, and they hire this guy, Big, to work in the house, doing cooking, security, and so forth. So, what happens next? Well, then it comes out, of course, all of this stuff because of Marjorie's first husband being released. He writes a book, and he talks about his book on Tasha K's blog, and that gains a lot of publicity. Okay, so I'm into the Steve Harvey show, and then Big and Marjorie were supposedly having sex, and Big says that Lori, who is a girl very popular in the media, that he announces that Lori is his child, and I guess not Steve Harvey's child. So that causes a lot of commotion. Then we hear that Steve has a radio show, which I never heard of, but it's a morning show, and he has a lady named Shirley Strawberry there, and she does something called the Strawberry Letter, and she has a great voice, and she does a lot of conversation on Steve's show. So she wants a husband. Steve introduces her to Ernesto Williams. Ernesto has a long criminal history, and Shirley doesn't know about this, but she falls in love with Ernesto, marries Ernesto, and after about, I guess, 2 years of marriage or something like that, it might be longer, but anyway, since June of 2022, Ernesto was arrested, put in jail, and he sits there today. Now, I didn't understand exactly what Ernesto did, but someone told me that Ernesto this time had a barbershop where he was doing a prostitution ring in the basement. And in the barbershop, there were a lot of very beautiful young girls, and they would have the clients go down to the basement, and of course they had this prostitution stuff going, and the barbershop was open 24 hours a day, which of course was very unusual. Now Shirley doesn't know that this is involved with Ernesto's charges, and she is trying to be the dutiful wife. Now someone found tapes of voicemail calls between Ernesto and Shirley, and they've been putting them on YouTube. And I've been listening to these recordings, and they are so boring. I think I've lost a lot of brain cells listening to these, but some of them are very interesting in that Ernesto has also a girlfriend, a younger girl who lives in Florida, who he has very vibrant conversations with, where he's talking about her sending photos, and they just talk about various things. But when he talks with Shirley on the phone, they barely have anything to talk about, and she's very stressed, and she is paying all of his bills. So one of the things that concerns me is Shirley, who's about 70, says that she doesn't have a home. The government, the police took her home, her car. She's been living with friends or relatives, and she has lost a lot of her savings. My question is, why is Steve paying this Shirley Strawberry so little money that she can't even afford to live? She doesn't have a home. She doesn't have a car. She's paying all of the bills for this man that Steve introduced her to. Now, someone said that Steve did not introduce her to Ernesto, so there's some variability on that, but he did serve as the main man at their wedding. So it does look like he is hooked up with Ernesto in some way. Anyway, I have spent a lot of time listening to all of this nonsense about these people. It is very, very strange and very, very sad to see Steve Harvey involved with all of these gangland people. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know anything about his family, but it seems very, very sad, and as if we were kind of hoodwinked. Someone even said, and this really is an allegation, that Steve Harvey was involved with, quote unquote, getting rid of Bernie Mac. And they suggested that he poisoned him. I don't know if that's true. I like to think that it's not. But, I mean, this saga is really, really convoluted, long, And it looks like Ernesto is going to be in jail probably for the rest of his life because there are also allegations, I believe, of um, molestation. So, or maybe even rape. I don't know. But I try to follow this, but my brain tells me to get off this path. It is not good for my mental health. But are you following it? And if so, what do you think of all of this stuff that's going on with Steve Harvey, his wife, and everybody else? I believe Steve knows that his wife, if she is having sex with the cook, this guy Big, I believe he knows it. I think he approves of it. And I think it is normal for them. In one conversation, Big said that he and Steve Harvey would have fun times putting soul food on, I guess, a plastic mat on the floor and fighting in it. That's what I got from the story. But it's just wild. It's just wild. Well, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.